think in our case in Kenya, we started in August, in earnest really in August 29th, where the Deputy President launched what we call the National Partnership on Sustainable Development Data. And the idea of the partnership was to build a multi-stakeholder ecosystem, and that is what we thought was important. Because if you talk about SDGs, it's about private sector, it's about people, it's about civil society, it's about governments, both at national and sub-national level, being able to engage in a coherent fashion where they're actually collectively working towards the goals. We had a couple of milestones. So the first milestone for sure for us was actually to have the national forum. And the national forum was actually the political declaration in terms of bringing together an ecosystem of players at the very highest level to ensure that there's political buy-in. As you say in Kenya, the SDGs is a political construct. So you really need political buy-in at that level. The second milestone for us, I think, was institutionalization of sort of the partnership. And our office, at the Deputy President's office, continues to actually guide that process. The other milestone that we have is simply being able to sort of do what we call catalytic actions, because it's one thing to have a partnership, it's one thing to have a roadmap, but it's one thing also to be dealing with current challenges that exist. In our case, for example, and this is a case in point, was El Nino. Kenya and Mexico actually was thinking about the same, to see how can we operationalize this new thinking around data. Secondly, remember the SDGs was talking about people, prosperity, and planet. In most cases, planet was always left behind, I think, in the notion of SDGs. So I think the idea was to showcase what can a partnership do, and not necessarily only in Kenya, but also the role of the global partnership in this case. So we worked closely with the global partnership. We worked with US State Department. We worked with the Sustainable Development Network in terms of getting data on climate to sort of beef up our data gaps that we had from our meteorological department. And in many ways, we were able actually to facilitate and mitigate climate change or potential disasters that were rising from El Nino, I think, in a very different way. For us, I think that was a good milestone. The other bit, I think, was simply how to bring together, how to actually work between private sector, government, and civil society to actually come up with a draft roadmap. Global partnership for me is a space, right? It's a space that enables government, civil society, private sector, and champions around sustainable development to come together to actually work and create actions that are really focused on how to use data for sustainable development. One thing we've learned, for instance, is the entire essence of setting up a multi-stakeholder ecosystem. It is hard. It takes time. I think it's about creating new partnerships and new arrangements, shedding off those bureaucracies of how citizens engage with government, how government engage with civil society. Private sector will tell you that their engagement with government has always been around tenders, right? But right now it's clear that there's a different sort of engagement where they're not suppliers. They're actually part of the development ecosystem. So for me, I think that's a very big lesson, that entire multi-stakeholder ecosystem, now informing that. The other bit I think we're learning is what we're increasingly calling policy innovation. The idea is that around sustainable development goals and especially data is we cannot even, policy making has to innovate. It cannot take as long as it used to take. It has to be engaging. It's multiple players coming together to actually draft that policy so that it's inclusive, and that you're not thinking of repealing it, reforming it, but it's something that everybody has. I mean, it has buy-in. So I think for us, the policy innovation, I think, is something that we think has been a great lesson. The other bit, I think, is connection with the global partnership. The idea that people like us in the presidency can actually talk right across to State Department, right? So I think there's even new norms of international engagement where we can actually even reach to a company without necessarily following the diplomatic channels or the traditional diplomatic channels. So I think the partnership, a lesson we are seeing is also reinventing international engagement.